The overall objective of the report was to look at the growth potential for the economies across the continent of Africa, and importantly to understand the role that private foreign investment will have to play in facilitating that growth. And of course, if we're going to have private investment into Africa, we're also going to have mechanisms to get that private investment into Africa. And that's where the international financial centres like Jersey have a place. Africa accounts for 1 in 7 of the world's population, but only 4% of the world's economy. It's underperforming substantially at the moment economically. However, there are great opportunities ahead for the African continent. We believe there's real potential for the economies across the continent of Africa. Whereas in the West, we're seeing an ageing population. Actually, Africa is about to receive a demographic dividend. Importantly, the working age population in Africa is growing, whereas in the rest of the world, it's shrinking. This means we can see growth in the economy far greater in Africa than many other parts of the world. Indeed, we think the African economy can quadruple in size between now and 2040. If Africa is going to realise its economic potential, then things are going to have to change. Importantly, we're going to have to see a step change in the amount of capital in the African continent. And by capital, I don't mean money. What I mean is plant, machinery, buildings, infrastructure, telecommunications networks, schools, hospitals, all the things, all the assets that make an economy tick. We estimate that to get the 4 times growth in the economy by 2040, we're going to have to see the level of assets, the stock of capital across the continent, grow 6-fold by 2040. That's an $85 trillion investment between now and then. But we've looked at the numbers and we estimate that by 2040 there's an investment gap of at least $11.4 trillion. That's new money that has to be found from new sources. And when you go through where those sources might be, well, aid isn't going to do it. Local governments aren't going to do it. Other governments aren't going to do it. It has to come from private investors. This is the challenge for Africa. We need to be realistic about the needs of foreign investors, and also we need to be realistic about the challenges to African economies. Importantly, anything we can do to reduce the risks, to reduce the uncertainties, to make investors feel more comfortable about the investments they are making, will all support the investment they make into the African continent. That's where international financial centres like Jersey have a role to play, a very important role to play. Jersey can play a vital role in facilitating private foreign investment into the African continent. Importantly, Jersey has got an amazing history. A history of sound government, a history of the rule of law and good courts, a history of investors trusting the jurisdiction to do what's best. To sum up, it's important to see private investment, global investors, for what they are, and that's a force for good. Africa, if it's going to get anywhere near realising the potential that it has, if we're going to see incomes rise in Africa, we have to see foreign investment, private investment into the continent. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. In fact, it's the only way forward for the continent.